This is Margaret Olds welcoming you to our show. We are sponsored by RSVP, the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, a part of Mature Services. A kaleidoscope, according to the dictionary, offers a constantly changing group of bright objects. This is what we hope to achieve with these programs, highlighting interesting organizations, activities, and people in our viewing area. After these messages, we'll be right back to meet our guest.
Redo this.
Oh, the whole.
3, 2.
Our guest today is Jim Kaler, an attorney who advises older adults on how to preserve their wealth and still be able to pay for their medical care costs. Welcome to our show, Jim.
Thanks, Margaret. It's good to be here.
Let's start by hearing a little bit about Jim Kaler. Who are you? Are you a native of the area? And what do you do?
Well, I'm from southern Indiana, down in Evansville, the far corner of Indiana from here. Came here after I graduated law school, got married, so I'm pretty much staying in this area.
And law school was where?
Indiana.
Indiana.
Yeah, Bloomington, where Bob Knight threw the chair.
Bobby Knight, hooray.
Well, don't push it too much. I went to Purdue for undergrad, so that's my number one loyalty, but Indiana's second.
Well, tell us the kind of situations you help people with.
Well, I primarily work with senior citizens who need nursing home care or other long-term care, because nursing home care and somewhat assisted living can really eat away at a senior's life savings, and the seniors who need this care have generally already been retired for 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. So they've been living off their savings for quite some time. The costs of long-term care can eat away their savings very, very quickly. So I try to help them do with their life savings, with what's left of it anyway after they've lived off it for a while, do with it what they would like to do, what they would choose to do, rather than what the costs of their care force them to do. A nursing home is generally $7,000 a month right now. The Medicaid rate, in other words, pretty much the lowest rate in the state, is a little over $6,000. But if you were to private pay, you're more in the area of $6,500 or $7,000 a month to pay for a nursing home. Assisted living is kind of a broader range and is generally less expensive than a nursing home, but still at $3,000 or $3,500 a month, it eats away at your savings very quickly. I try to give seniors an alternative to simply watching their life savings dwindle away because of the cost of these care. Give them a chance to do with that money what they'd like, what they would choose to do. I've kind of found that seniors think of their money in three different ways as seniors view their life savings. One is it's just money, but they want to do with it what they want because it's their money, okay? They've worked hard to earn it and they would like it to do what they ask. Another way that I've found seniors look at their money is, well, their life savings anyway, is it's kind of their footprints of being productive on the earth. An artist has his or her art live on. It may be good, it may be bad, but the art lives on. A composer has the same thing with his or her music. An architect has buildings that stay behind and show his or her productivity. But for working people, all they really have is their life savings. They don't have their signature on anything anywhere. So their life savings is kind of their trophy of being on the earth and being productive in society. So they'd like that trophy to do something, to stand for something, rather than just go away because they have these long-term care costs. The kind of the third way I think the seniors see their life savings is it's a sign of their independence. It's something they have control over. Seniors are losing control over things they've had control over in the past. The ability to walk as well as they used to, the ability to control when they go to the bathroom, to sleep as well as they used to. A lot of different things that as you get older, you unfortunately lose control. Keeping control of your money gives you some feeling of independence, some feeling of control over your own life. Having the costs of long-term care essentially fly in and take control of your money can be very frustrating. The end result for anyone is still the same. The money is, they've either got to choose to do with it what someone like me can help them do, or they're going to watch it dwindle. But the emotional attachment to that money, the emotional reasons that they act the way they do, can differ from senior to senior.
Well, how do you help people? For example, if I came to you and I was looking ahead to thinking perhaps I was going to need some pretty intensive medical care in the future, and I have X number of dollars, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. How do you go about working with your clients to assist them?
Well, seniors really can deal with long-term care costs at two different times. As you just said, they can think about what might happen in the future. They can think and worry, frankly. If you're not worried about it, you're generally not going to ask anybody about it. You're not going to look for anybody like me if you're not worried about it. But if you are worried about it, you can pre-plan. You're thinking ahead. You're trying to decide, what can I do with my money now that will allow me to have that money, not necessarily in my name, because that's a very important thing. You can't hold on to the money in your own name and still qualify for Medicaid to pay for your long-term care. You have to hold it in someone else's name, or give it to your kids, or put it in a trust, or frankly the most powerful, but perhaps the most expensive approach is to buy long-term care insurance. But it's not cheap, but it is by far the most powerful approach. And if you're not worried about it, and I actually just put this on my weblog this morning, if you're not worried about the cost of long-term care, doing nothing and simply taking the risk is a perfectly acceptable approach. It's low cost, it's no hassle, but it is risky. But as long as you can live with the risk, that's okay. Most of my work, frankly, isn't with seniors who want to plan ahead. It's what I call crisis planning, and frankly, a lot of people like me, all the other lawyers in my industry, think of it as crisis planning or emergency planning. It's helping seniors at the time they need long-term care put their finances in order in a way that minimizes the financial loss to the family. The senior can't keep the money. It's just plain and simple. A senior cannot keep the money. It's not allowed under the rules. As long as the senior has money, they got to pay the nursing home out of that money.
Explain a little more about this Medicaid and
okay.
No.
Medicaid, first of all, Medicaid is a federal program put together by Congress in Washington decades ago. So I think of that as the skeleton of Medicaid. The meat on Medicaid's bones was put together by federal regulators, again, in Washington, over the ensuing decades. The clothes are put on the animal, or clothes are put on the person by the state of Ohio and every other state, because most of the money comes from the federal government. It comes down to the states, and the states are allowed to have some of their own rules.
Well,
so
who
that's
is it
where the
supposed
clothes.
to help?
Well, it's supposed to help
Everybody?
the poor people.
Oh.
Medicare, is probably all your viewers know, is for people of age. At a certain age, no matter how rich or poor you are, you can get Medicare. Medicaid is for the poor. No matter how old you are or how young you are, Medicaid is for the poor. Medicaid has within it a program called Aged, Blind, and Disabled. People who are elderly, disabled for whatever reason, regardless of age, or blind, again, regardless of age. That's the program that pays for long-term care. Many people know the Medicaid program that pays for families and welfare families for the most part. Kids' shots, health care visits, seeing the doctor, that's routine Medicaid. Long-term care Medicaid has to fall in the Aged, Blind, and Disabled program And that, too, like general Medicaid, is limited to the poor. But there are ways that you can become poor and still qualify for Medicaid. That's what I do. I help a family keep money within the family, or if the senior would rather give it to a charity, whatever the senior wants to do. It's the senior's money. They should do with it what they would choose to do with it, not what the circumstances force them to do, and not what, they shouldn't necessarily have to respond to their kids if the kids want all the money. But it's the senior's money. They should do with it what they choose. Holding on to it simply means it's going to be there for the nursing home or the assisted living facility to demand every month with a bill. Letting loose of it, while it's not easy emotionally to let go of all your money all at once, but doing that allows you to do with it, some of it anyway, what you would choose to do. You might give a lot of it to the kids, which most families choose to do. I mean, that's what they would like their legacy to be. It pays for a grandchild's college, perhaps, or helps a down payment for the children's house, or something else like that. But giving it away allows someone like me to position things, to help the senior give it away in a manner that still qualifies the senior for Medicaid. If you were to give away $6,000 today, and tomorrow need long-term care and apply to Medicaid, and you were otherwise poor enough to qualify for Medicaid, Medicaid would say, yes, Margaret, you're a Medicaid patient, but for 1 month we're not going to pay your bills because you gave away $6,000. I help those seniors qualify for Medicaid anyway, avoid that time where Medicaid's not paying the bills. Now, since the senior's poor, they're not going to pay the bills, but the nursing home doesn't want to keep a senior that's not paying if they can help it. They can't kick out a non-paying Medicaid patient, but if you get sick, they can send you to the hospital, because they send all their patients, all their residents to the hospital if they get sick. A nursing home is not a medical community, it's a residential community. So if you get sick, they're going to send you to where the doctors are. Well, it's the same with a Medicaid patient. They're going to send the Medicaid patient where the doctors are. If the Medicaid patient isn't being paid, or if the nursing home isn't being paid by Medicaid for that patient because the patient gave money away, we call it a period of reduced coverage or a penalty period, then the nursing home isn't being paid to hold that bed open. If they have another opportunity to fill it, they're going to fill it, and the senior becomes the nursing home's problem. I'm sorry, the senior becomes the hospital's problem, not the nursing home's problem anymore. If someone's paying to hold that bed, which is what a normal Medicaid payment does, or for that matter, so does a private payment every month, pays to hold that bed, then the senior comes back to the nursing home where he or she expects to come back to.
Well, when you say they can give away a certain amount of money, is there a period of time preceding, for example, their entry onto Medicaid,
Yes.
during which they may not dispose of their savings?
Well, it's what we call a look-back period.
Okay.
Right now it's 5 years. Before 2006, it was 3 years unless you used a trust, but so most people didn't use trusts because that was a longer look-back period. But now, starting in 2006, it's a 5-year look-back period. So if you gave away money 5 years ago and applied for Medicaid today, they're not going to go back far enough to look at what you gave away 5 years ago. They're just not allowed, and they know that. But if you give away money within that 5 years, they're going to ask the question, and you might lie, you might be able to avoid having them find out, but too much tax information is available via computer, especially within the government. Too much banking information is available via computer. It's going to be hard to pretend you didn't give away a significant amount of money.
Well, is that illegal to do? I mean, are there penalties involved if you do that?
Yes, and I'm not going to be involved in it because I could go to jail too.
Yeah. You don't want to do that.
Preferably not.
Well, you spoke before about long-term care insurance as being an expensive but more a reliable way to spend your money to take care of yourself. What are some other techniques you use to guide people as possibilities for them?
Pre-planning?
Yeah, for pre-planning.
For pre-planning, there are 4 ways I'm willing to talk about pre-planning. 2 of them I already talked about. Do nothing and take the risk, which is okay. use long-term care insurance, which I don't sell, but frankly is a very powerful tool for someone like me. If a client comes to me with that insurance, there's a heck of a lot more I can do for them and a heck of a lot more money we can keep in the family than if they don't have the insurance. It's not the entire answer, but it's a tool in the toolbox that allows someone like me to do more for that senior citizen. The other two ways, frankly, involve giving away your money now. You can put it into a trust. It has to be an irrevocable trust for Medicaid purposes. A revocable, meaning you can take it back, trust is great for estate planning, for planning ahead for your death. Because when you die, you can't take it back anymore. The right to revoke ends when you can't say, I revoke. And when you're dead, you can't say that anymore. So that's great to avoid the probate process, great to pass assets along to the next generation, but is worthless for long-term care pre-planning because you're still alive when you need long-term care. And nursing home and Medicaid will say, well, Margaret, you've got a lot of money in a revocable trust, revoke it. Take it all back, pay your bills, and when that money's gone, then we'll pick up the ball and we'll take it. So it would need to be in an irrevocable trust, and you couldn't be your own trustee. It has to be somebody else. Because if you were the trustee, you could simply say, well, I choose to pay the bills. And Medicaid could tell you, Margaret, choose to pay your bills because you're the trustee. Okay. It doesn't do any good in protecting your money from your long-term care costs.
Right, I see.
So someone else would have to be the trustee. It would have to be a particularly, it'd have to be written in a particular way in the trust agreement so that you couldn't demand your money back of the trustee. You can't strong-arm the trustee. You can beg and hope that the trustee gives you money if you want, but the trustee has to have the right to say no. Because if it says it's for Margaret's care, well, long-term care is your care. If it's for Margaret's maintenance, long-term care is your maintenance. It has to be completely discretionary, and the trustee has to be completely independent with the ability to say, no, Margaret, I'm not giving you a dime. And that's uncomfortable because you'd have to give up your money in advance, and then you're living off the largesse, frankly, of that trustee. Now, you'll have something in your bank account. You'll always keep something in your bank account. But the bulk of your money is under someone else's control. It's a great protective strategy, but frankly, I think it's emotionally uncomfortable. I'm not sure I would do that myself. But if you can't sleep at night because you're afraid of the risk of long-term care, and you don't want to pay the premiums of long-term care insurance, or you have something that you're not going to get long-term care insurance, like diabetes, for example, then you may want to consider a trust. But it costs somebody to set up a trust, and it has to have a separate tax return every year. So there's some costs that go with it in addition to the hassle of someone else controlling your money. The fourth approach is give your money to the kids now and simply hope they hold on to it if you need some of it back. I call that giving money to Junior. The problem is I don't trust Junior. Junior can say, oh, I've got all this money from Mom. Yeah, my income is going to be great over the next few years, so I'm going to build a pool with Mom's money, and I will replenish Mom's account, even though it's not in Mom's name anymore, it's in his name. But I'm going to replenish Mom's account and never get around to it. So Mom's money's diminished, and it was his because you gave it to him, but you were really hoping he would have it in there in case you needed it, and then he built a pool. Or maybe Junior's not untrustworthy, but life happens to Junior. He gets a divorce, so the money that you put there is technically not supposed to be considered part of the divorce, but I don't trust divorce judges to really take that source of the money into account. Sorry, divorce judges, but divorces are just weird because it's a battle royal, or can be. Or he can get into a car accident, and everything in his name is then subject to being taken by the person injured in the car accident if he's the least little bit at fault. Or he could have a business downturn. And if he personally guaranteed loans that help build his business, then anything in his name is subject to being taken on those loans. So there are scary things that I think create a lot of risk if you want to give money to your kids early and simply hope that it's there when you need it. It's an okay approach. And I'm not really going to make the decision for a senior what approach to take. I'm just sharing with you my views on, if I were making the decision, what I think I would try to do. Simply put, my favorite two ways to pre-plan are take the risk and do nothing, but realize you're taking a risk, or buy long-term care insurance. If you're losing sleep over worrying about long-term care insurance is the most powerful tool you can arm yourself with to make it easier later to keep money in the family.
So although you recommended 4 alternatives, you seem to prefer the 2.
For me, anyway.
From your point of view.
Yeah,
yes.
from my point of view.
But the significant thing, it seems to me, is that you're giving people the opportunity to think and to plan ahead, and you're giving them advice about alternatives that they might not otherwise think about.
I try to.
So even if they don't take your advice,
right,
they at least have become informed about planning ahead.
I try to do that. Even my website starts out with the phrase, seniors have a choice. And when I give a presentation in a Rotary, Kiwanis, whomever, I describe my presentation as seniors have a choice. And I try to maximize the number of those choices that are available to people who talk to me, either because they heard me speak, or they're listening to this TV program, or they're my clients. I'm just trying to give them as many choices as I can. Now, tempered with my own advice of what I would do if I were in their shoes. But for example, I talked to a gentleman about planning ahead because he was worried about his long-term care costs. Excuse me, a little nose itch. He was worried about his long-term care costs, and it was keeping him up at night. But he didn't like the cost of long-term care insurance. He just didn't want to pay that. So I said, okay, we can give the money to your kids now. Oh no, if I give money to my kids now, they'll stop working. Okay, well, then we can set up a trust, and you can put substantially all your assets into that trust, but you'd have to pick someone as a trustee, because you can't be the trustee. The same discussion you and I had a couple of minutes ago. I said, well, who would I pick as a trustee? Well, frequently you would pick your kids. Oh no, if I tell my kids how much money they have, they'll stop working. So everybody has a different frame of reference or different priorities in their lives that help them decide which option is best for them. So just because I have a point of view that worries about the risk of giving money to junior and the hassle of putting money into a trust doesn't mean that others share that view. And it's really up to the senior that has the money to decide what's the best approach for him or her. And I simply try to help them find that best approach.
But the important point here is that you're not selling a product. You are just providing advice and guidance for people to plan ahead.
Yes. Well, if they need a trust written, I hope to write the trust for them. But my advice isn't free.
Oh,
if I'm giving a speech, my advice is free. But talking one-on-one with a client.
How do you charge for your fee?
Well,
I mean, what is your...
If I work with a senior citizen in an emergency situation, which frankly is my bread and butter, that's my basic client, I have a flat fee. I have a flat fee to charge, that I charge to examine their current financial situation, their expected income, Social Security, pension, etc., their current life savings, and their costs, and help them come up with a plan. Actually, I do most of the planning and then say, is this okay with you guys? Because we can tweak a little bit here or there. But formulate a plan for them to keep as much money in the family as they can, or again, as I say, do with it what they choose. But to maximize the size of that pile of money they get to choose, and I charge a flat fee for that. Then, if we agree on the plan, I have a second flat fee where I help them implement the plan, and I try to make it a punch list or a to-do list. Write a check to this guy for so-and-so. Buy this annuity because it'll help us buy off a penalty period, where you give away money. You have a penalty period I mentioned a few minutes ago. Buy a prepaid funeral, buy a casket, these sorts of things. Just kind of a punch list, a to-do list. In the plan, when I sit down with them and talk about the plan, I try to make it, here's why we're doing it, so they understand. But when it comes time to implement, which is when they've hired me to continue my work, I really try to keep a to-do list because time is of the essence. The quicker we get this done, the less money they will simply lose out the door to their costs. And also, in addition to helping them implement the plan, the second part of my work is to go to Medicaid on their behalf. I am their authorized representative at Medicaid so that they don't have to go to Medicaid at all. That's my problem. I apply for their benefits. I go through the application process. I show the Medicaid caseworker, here's why my client qualifies. Yes, we gave away some money, but here's how we're paying for the penalty. I try to line the whole thing out for the Medicaid agency and try to make it as transparent as possible so that my clients, one, keep as much money as they can within reason. Again, not in their own names, but keep it within the family. But two, so that they don't have to worry that they're not going to get approved by Medicaid. When a senior citizen needs long-term care, that family is going through a lot of things all at once. Yeah. Some of them are financial, some are logistic, and a lot of them are emotional. How's mom? Is she going to be okay? Is this the right nursing home? What's the roommate like? What's the food like? Does she like the color on the walls? Does she like the activities? Who's going to visit? How often? The list goes on and on. I describe it as 100 balls go up in the air that weren't there before.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kaler, for being with us today. You've given us good advice to plan ahead so we never have to say, I wish I had known.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for watching today's view through our kaleidoscope. We hope you enjoyed it and that you will remember our sponsor, RSVP, a part of Mature Services. RSVP offers adults age 55 and over volunteer opportunities in the local community. For more information about RSVP, call the number on the screen. This is Margaret Olds saying goodbye for now. Giving you the signal. Actually, the signal came a little earlier than I expected.
Oh, okay. We have 2 outtakes to take. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out on you, and I want you to look at him and just nod your head like you're listening to something he's saying, and you could actually talk because it's not going to be audio; it's just going to be your video.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is we'll do that for about 30 seconds or so, and then I need you to talk. And I just need you to look at her and nod your head like you're listening to it.
Fair enough.
And then we'll pop those in there.
Oh, you mean we're pretending to talk?
Yeah. Well, you can actually talk if you want to.
Okay.
It's the head nod they're worried about. It's not the talking.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Because rather than keep the camera on the talker, they're going to show the person listening partway through the discussion.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay.
She's nodding first.
Somebody.
Okay.
We'll pretend. No. Why don't you talk first? How do you think it went? Do you feel like you got your message across all right?
I think so. I'm never quite sure because it's a complicated message. The first thing I tell my clients is, or anybody that I'm talking to, is this is not logic, this is politics. It's tricky stuff. It's very tricky stuff.
And it's scary.
Yeah.
You're giving up a lot.
Yeah. My clients, I don't think that most families will find their way through this maze without help.
It's very difficult for them, and you never know. For example, your children might end up with some severe illness or something that comes up in their life that really makes it a real problem for you.
Yeah.
So,
I have
people of any age can need Medicaid. I mean, anything can happen.
And people of any age can need long-term care.
Yeah. It's very, very
You got both of us already?
Perfect.
Oh, it's easy.
I'll pick you up while you were talking.
Okay.
Okay.
We are good talkers, aren't we?
Wind me up and I'll just go.
I think we tried to guide it through, and so that it was a sequence that made sense.
Yeah.
No, very good. You're a
thank you for the opportunity.
good person to interview.
Well, thank you.
Because you can just ask a question and there you go.
If you get anywhere close to what I could talk about, I'm off to the races. A friend of mine used to do competitive speaking back in high school. We were on the speech team, and when was I in high school? I graduated in '79, when the Cold War was still cold. And the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization,
yeah.
was a big deal because
Big
the
deal,
Warsaw Pact
yeah.
was a big deal. And he spoke extemporaneously, which means he didn't know what his topic was going to be until about a half hour before he had to speak.
Oh, wow,
okay?
yeah, that's tough.
He didn't care what it was. He was going
Yeah.
to bring it back to NATO because he knew NATO.
He knew that.
He had NATO down, and he was going to bring it back.
Well, I knew something about this topic too, which helped. And
Sure.
then speaking
Your
with
body
you,
language was great, by the way.
what?
Your body language was great.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. I know you didn't say much, but you said a lot with your.
Well, I wanted to listen to him
Yes, you did.
and respond to him. I hope I did.
You
Anyway,
did a nice job.
we'll do it again sometime.
I
Well,
look
we
forward
can't
to
walk
it.
away with
Oh,
thanks.
yeah, I would have.
Well, I would have
Stop
too,
cold.
except that I noticed it.
That was a good rehearsal. Now you want to do the real thing.
Okay, the perfect one, huh?
There we go.